a lot of people want to build their personal brand, but they don't want to spend money. You have to, it's not cheap. Either you pay someone to do it for you properly, or you spend a lot of time. And what I did both.
Hello and welcome to the Brandtuned podcast, which discusses all things brand related, including the essential trademark and IP dimension. I'm your host, Shireen Smith, IP lawyer, brand manager, and author of Brandtuned, the new rules of branding, strategy, and intellectual property. Hello, everyone. Somi Orion, my guest today, is a tech philosopher, award-winning filmmaker, author, entrepreneur, and a LinkedIn top voice in the UK. With a background in philosophy of science and technology, Somi describes her role in society as a transition architect. As humans merge with technology, and society enters a new phase of human evolution, Somi works on frameworks to address the challenges ahead. She is the founder of Smart Cookie Media, a modern-day digital marketing firm for thought leaders, and Fempeak, a platform that aims to help raise women's socioeconomic status through the application of technology. So, hello, Somi. Welcome to the Brandtuned podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Shireen.
So, you've had a really varied background, including growing up in Iran. Tell me a bit more about that. I'd love to know.
Sure. Well, I was born during the Iran-Iraq War. So my early memories are of sirens and going into the shelter, and my parents had to take me to another city where their family came from. So that was quite traumatizing because at that age, when you are separated from your parents, even though I didn't have a good relationship with my parents from very early on, it was still quite traumatizing. So I was actually recently reading the autobiography of Dame Stephanie Shirley. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. Mm-hmm. But she talks about the World War II and how she was separated from her parents, to come to the UK to live with a different family, and it resonated so much. So it was quite similar. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs now living in the West, that is a very foreign idea. But I grew up in actual war.
And how old were you at that time? Well.
When the war finished, I went to school then, so it was about 7 years old when it finished. So the first 6 to 7 years of my life, the war was still going on. Iran is a very oppressive country towards women. My parents were not very open. They were pretty traditional. I questioned religion and everything from very early age, and that didn't sit well with my parents. My mom, I remember,
rebel.
Yeah, my mom said she said, "I regret the day that you learned English."
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I come from Iran originally, and I was at school here and would go back in the summer holidays. That was pre-revolution, so it was a very different Iran.
Very different times, yeah. But I mean, I wasn't born then, but I hear that it was a very different time.
But women had quite a lot of power. So although in theory it was men who had the power, my grandmother was very, very powerful. It was quite matriarchal as a family. I'm just wondering whether it changed after, the revolution, that it became so male chauvinistic or what?
Yeah, I think so. I think that something happened. I hear that things were very different before, and it was a lot more progressive. I remember looking at pictures of my mother. She was wearing very westernized kind of clothing, and she wasn't wearing hijab. And then all of a sudden, after the revolution, obviously, wearing a hijab after the revolution became compulsory, so you had to wear it. But even in closed environments where she didn't have to, she still wore it, and she just became quite religious. Same with my father; they both became pretty religious, and I don't know if this was whether they felt like they needed to. No, I think that it was more than that. It wasn't like just like us now wearing masks because we have to, because I think some people really buy into those things, those kinds of whatever it is that the government says you should be doing, right? And some people really actually buy into it and never question things. So I don't consider my parents as being critical thinkers, or we're just very, very, very different, very different. I just really don't feel any affinity with my family back home.
Was there any figure who guided you? Because to me, it just sounds amazing that somebody being brought up in Iran in that sort of background would be able to learn English, come to the UK, live here. I mean, how did you achieve all that?
I just had incredible drive from a very early age. I didn't have any role model. I didn't have anybody helping me. Not really, no. I actually, if anything, my teachers a lot of times, thought that I wouldn't amount to anything. I had ADHD. I wasn't very good at school. I also later on discovered that I have like a mild to moderate kind of autism, depending on where the situation is. Let's say more on the mild side. But the thing is, like, I'm a very high functioning autistic person. If I have the way I talk about it, people sometimes think like, how can you be autistic if you are so outgoing? And actually, the truth is that I'm not an introvert and I'm not an extrovert. I'm kind of bang in the middle. But the way what really defines my characteristic is high achievement, right? So the desire for achieving pushes me to do things beyond my ability. So I defy everything. I've defied everything, whether it was like poverty, whether it was like the lack of education of my parents, the background that I came from. I defied everything. And when I look at my family, like, for example, all of my family are obese, like, and I never allowed that to happen to me. And I remember, like, my cousins and my aunties used to say, by the time you get to your 30s, you will be as big as us, And I was like, no, I'm not going to. And they were like, no, it's going to happen. It's genetics. So I never bought into the idea that you're defined by your genes or by your environment, And I was like, yes, environment, I realized that has an impact. That's why I changed it. And I came to the UK. But when I was in Iran, I learned English, I taught myself English pretty early. And by the time I was 17, I was working as a tour guide for European embassies and, European tourists coming to Iran. And that's how I got exposed to European embassies. And then I got a job offer at the Dutch embassy in Tehran when I was 19. And I was the youngest I was a visa officer, a junior visa officer there. So that was a very early age to be in that position. And all of a sudden I was earning 3 to 4 times more than both my parents did. And, and that gave me a lot of power, a lot of confidence, and I felt like, I'm just my own person and I don't need to answer to anybody. That was, so learning English was a turning point. And also I discovered heavy metal music. I don't know if you know, but I was in a death metal band.
I was going to ask about that. So you came to the UK and then you took up this.
Yeah. I did it when obviously in Iran, it was pretty impossible. But I got into the music and it kind of helped me a lot to get through difficult times. but yeah, so I worked for United Nations after that. So I worked for the European embassies and the United Nations altogether for about 4.5 years or so while I was doing my bachelor's degree in Tehran. And then I applied for universities in the UK. I managed to get a partial scholarship, and brought every penny I had earned and saved from being in the United Nations and European embassies. I brought all that money here. It was pretty scary. I was only 23 when I came here. And
how on earth did you get the right to stay here? Because I found that very difficult when I was growing up.
It took me 11 years.
11 years?
Yes, yeah. I was at first I was a student for 4.5 years. Then I got a post-study visa. Then I was living with an ex-boyfriend at the time, and he was like, "We are already living together. Let's get married." So I got married, and then got divorced later. It was like I was in a position where my boss at the time, he could have sponsored me, but he didn't, and he was like, "You're already living with your boyfriend. Why don't you get married?" And I was like, I just sort of had to make a choice between either going back and asking for asylum, which didn't make any sense because I was already here for like 7-8 years, and I was living with this guy. So,
right, okay. And then you got into entrepreneurship. How did that happen?
So I couldn't really start a business or anything until, you can start a business if you're not a British citizen, but it's a lot harder, right? Getting a loan and things like that would be very hard. So 2015, I became a British citizen. And by then I had worked in TV for 5 years because when I finished my studies, I worked for a Persian language channel in London for 5 years. And I learned quite a lot about filmmaking, and, I became a full-fledged producer there.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2015, I started my own business.
Right.
And which in my first business, Smart Cookie Media, which was initially just like a marketing agency, which it still goes on, and that's what pays my life and pays for my team. And also the money that I made from Smart Cookie Media allowed me to invest it into building Fempeak, which is my new project.
Right. So, when I first came across you, you were just doing this documentary, you were hardly known, and then suddenly it shot you to fame, the documentary you did. But you've also transformed quite a lot.
Yes.
And been a top voice on LinkedIn 3 years running. How do you do that? It seems that you can teach people a lot about personal branding.
Yeah. So you know what? I never did any of these things with the view to personal branding. So I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to go and build my personal brand. And I always explain to people who come to me and say, how can I build my personal brand? I don't do that. What I do is I get passionate about something and I focus on, like, for example, the documentary was my own journey of discovery for what's happening to the industries, to the business landscape. So I did it because I discovered something and I wanted to teach what I discovered to potential clients, like I wanted to talk to, say, the Mark at the time, that was the marketing director of large corporations. And I wanted to explain to them, why the market is changing and why they're going to be left behind, why they're going to go out of business if they don't catch up with the modern day way of communicating with their audience. And that resulted into a documentary, and also the other things, I'm a risk taker. I take big risks. I spend money. I put my money where my mouth is. A lot of people want to build their personal brand, but they don't want to spend money. You have to, it's not cheap. Either you pay someone to do it for you properly, or you spend a lot of time. And what I did both. It was a combination because there's only so much you can do. And ultimately, if you focus too much on just creating content, then you're going to lose the track of actually gaining clients. So the best thing to do is to hire a team, build, like that's what I was running a marketing agency. So I already had a team, but I put some more money into that. But the making my documentary cost me about 100,000 pounds. Well, sorry, 100,000 more like dollars, like say 80,000 pounds or so. That was making it, putting it through film festivals, putting some money behind advertising it, for people to sign up.
Over what period of time was that?
Over 18 months.
18 months. So that helped you. You also had somebody who was creating content for you. Is that right?
Well, I had a team because I already run a marketing agency, right? So I created a team of, because also remember, I'm a filmmaker, right? I'm a producer, filmmaker, right? So I created a company which was creating content for other companies, right? But also that team, let's say, I would say 40% of their time was dedicated to my content, 60% of their time was dedicated to the client content. So, but also I traveled quite a lot for it. I went all the way to New York for a 25-minute interview with Gary Vee. It took me 5 months to get that interview. I'm very persistent, right? Yeah. So it took me, I reached out, I knocked on doors, and I reached out to people, and I was like, this is what I'm doing, and they saw my passion, so they allowed me. So that created a huge network for me of people, who were like CEOs of Bentley and Jaguar Land Rover, The Economist.
I remember thinking this is a really good idea if your target market is big brands, but then you haven't stayed in that.
No, I get bored very quickly. I get bored very quickly. That market is already not as interesting to me anymore. So I got to a point within that market where I created a brand that was comfortably paying for my life and paying for my team, and I was making enough money that I said, okay, I would like to now invest in something new. I wanted to build a really big business. And that kind of business, you see, the thing is that you can make a big marketing agency, but it all comes down to what your goal is in life. So what happened was that I got approached then by Kogan Page to write a book about the future of work. And in the process of writing that book, the things that I wrote made me realize that this was not where I wanted to be for the rest of my life. I could see the value of it. I can see the value of, I think I will always keep Smart Cookie Media. It's a company that I'm not going to sell. I really love Smart Cookie Media. It's my, I think marketing is such an important thing and I'm going to keep very selective companies I'm going to work with. So our biggest client is Steinway Pianos, my biggest client for the past 5 years. Steinway is an incredible brand, and through them we get to meet and work with some incredible individuals and brands. Like, for example, right now, today we just sent them a beautiful film that we made for their 150th anniversary, not their for the 150th anniversary of Royal Albert Hall. So we are, it's giving us the opportunity to work with such brands, right? So Steinway is an amazing brand. They've, I think that they will be our client. They have been for our client, been our client for a very long time. And there is also another company, Neurocore Bioelectronic, that I have invested in, and they're our client. And we have a few other businesses that we work with, but we're very selective about who we choose to work with. And that's a really nice little business by itself, and it pays for my life. It's going to continue to pay for my life for a while, and maybe forever, But also at the same time, I've built Fempeak from scratch during the pandemic.
So that's your passion project at the moment, and also what you ultimately think is going to be.
You mean Fempeak?
Yeah.
Well, Fempeak is already I don't know if we can call it a passion project because it's now valued at over 25 million pounds. And, the valuation is going up almost every day because of the traction that we're getting. Right now, like today we had, for the first time, we had 690 people who opted into our mailing list. That's like a pretty large number in one day. So we started from 50 a day to 100 a day, 150 a day. Now we are at, I'd say at the moment, as of this recording, we are on average around over 500 a day. And I, depending on when this is released, I think that I reckon we will be at about 1,000 a day by the end of summer. So I think it's so much bigger than just a passion project. The way I see it, I want to change the world, and I want to change, I want to raise women's socioeconomic status. When I look at the top tier of business and technology, there are no women, no women. The world is run by literally a dozen companies, 5 in China, 5 or 6 in China, 5 or 6 in America, and all of them are run by and founded by men. None of them are founded and run by women entirely. So
you want to be one of the ones?
The way I see it, that's not how I look at it. It's a little bit, again, similar to, I didn't go out to build my personal brand. It's not that I want to be one of them. It would be something, it's like, to me, if that happens, that's a byproduct. What I want to do is change that status, like that, change the status quo. And the way I see it is like, I'm building a platform. Whether it happens in my generation, it may not happen in my generation, it may happen in the next generation, but I will definitely make a contribution to women I want to see equal number of, instead of having a dozen, I want to have 2 dozens and a dozen of them being women, so I'm building a platform to contribute to that. I don't measure it in terms of where I am. It's just like, I never wake up in the morning thinking, today I'm going to build my brand. I don't care. I don't think that way. To me, it's a byproduct. Money, I don't want to have children. I don't need a lot of money. And even if I become a billionaire, or be one of those people who would be in that top tier, the way I see it, like, all of my life is going to be dedicated to making changes, making change for the better.
Yeah. So how are you hoping to change women's socioeconomic status?
Through Fempeak. So when I wrote the book, I realized that over 95% of the references on my book were men. And I questioned that, and I was like, why? Like, I look at my own role models, there were no female role models, they were all men in the world of business and philosophy. And of course, I studied philosophy. I say that I'm a tech philosopher. And I wanted to find out why that was. So I started a think tank for women in business and technology. And I interviewed hundreds of people. I put together conferences. These conferences were extremely hard in the beginning to put together. And some of them I had like 16 people on the panel. It was so hard to I was like pretty alone, doing that with like a very small team. But what happened as a result of all of those conferences and interviews and interacting with thousands of women was that I discovered there are 6 reasons why women are left behind. Mm-hmm. So the Fempeak platform is designed to overcome those 6 reasons. So the six reasons are lack of confidence, lack of financial literacy, lack of tech skills, lack of business and entrepreneurship skills, women's health issues, so that's PMS, menopause, childbirth, and family and relationship support, or lack of, because a lot of times by the time women want to succeed, when women are succeeding, society doesn't have a norm, doesn't have a previous paradigm for how we should be, we haven't defined man and a woman, or I think maybe in same-sex relationships this may be less of an issue, but in heterosexual relationships, it's been historically that the man is supposed to be the breadwinner and the woman is supposed to be the carer. So all of that has an impact on women's success. So Fempeak is a platform which is like an ecosystem to overcome all of these, and it starts with the knowledge hub, and within our knowledge hub, we will be creating a lot of mentorship events on these 6 areas. At the moment, we have 2 to 3 a week. Eventually, we will have several a day. So it's going to increase, massively, and people will be able to come in live, ask their questions, and create, and then everything gets recorded and it becomes part of our on-demand content. But that's only one hub. That's only the knowledge hub. The next year, we're going to release our career hub, which is a talent pool, and companies can come in and hire women. So the idea is in the knowledge hub, to encourage more women to go into finance and technology and STEM fields, and then bring them into our talent pool so that companies can tap into that talent pool. The year after that, we will be creating our own marketplace, the Femtrade marketplace. And then the year after that, 2024, will be our investment network, and then the Femcoin cryptocurrency, and the Femme Lab. So Femme Lab is like our research and development on everything to do with femtech.
Well, it sounds a very, very big project. I mean,
I think project
one of those could be enough to keep somebody going for a lifetime. But,
that's it. Right?
5 or 6.
But I get bored, so I need to have lots of things, and I have the ability. I discovered that I have a talent for, and I have the ability to connect the dots and keep all of the disparate areas connected and bring them all together. I see, I can zoom out and see really the big picture, and I can zoom in and see the small as well.
The brand-tuned book is all about how to create a distinctive brand in line with the evidence-based research from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute into how brands grow. To celebrate its release on the 28th of September, we're hosting a virtual launch event with video interviews of key figures like Rory Sutherland, David Archer, and Rob Myerson. There's also a summarized audio version of the book worth £20 available for free to those who register for the book launch and buy the book, the Kindle version of which will be available that day for a mere £1.99. So register at brandtuned.com. The link is in the show notes. Is it mainly women who are joining your platform?
Yes, it's female focused. At least at the moment, it's female focused, because the way I see it is that there's a big discrepancy between where women are in terms of the areas that I described and where men are, and we want to level the playing field. We want to help women. That's why Fempeak, we've got Sherpanis. Sherpanis are people that help you to get to the top of Mount Everest. So we use that as a analogy or as a metaphor. So we have Sherpanis that will help you get better in those areas. So at the moment, it's mainly female focused. You never know if in 10, 15 years time, we get to a point that we feel like we have leveled the playing field, then Fempeak could morph into something of a human peak.
So basically, what competitors do you have? Are there other people running platforms for women?
So there are. So the way I see it, first of all, it's a very fragmented market. So everybody else who has anything is usually one aspect of these areas. First of all, the definition of those 6 areas, that is something that we discovered that's holding women back, and that's our IP. It came out of our think tank. So we figured those 6 areas, and we're developing a program, almost like a decade-long program to overcome those. So there, as to the best of my knowledge, nobody else has done it so systematically to focus on the big picture and see and connect all these dots. The way I see it, where there are other female-led platforms, we would like to collaborate with them, because I don't believe in competition in the in the traditional sense of the word, and I feel like this is something. It's a very female, the collaboration model. I think it can be a very feminine way of doing business.
I'm just wondering, like Amazon started by selling books, even though their overall ambition was to sell everything, whether it wouldn't be easier to tackle one.
But that's what we are doing. That's why we have the Knowledge Hub, right? That's why I said every year we are going to add a hub.
So you have everything else is on hold, effectively. Yes. You're just focusing on
the Knowledge Hub this year. Yeah. This year is the Knowledge Hub. Next year is the Career Hub. And so every year, literally, we will release a new hub.
Right.
Over 6 years.
And you're looking to collaborate with other organizations that do similar.
Yes, definitely. The only thing I would say is, if anybody wants to reach out to us for collaboration, I really request that people are very clear about because I get so many people saying, "Hey, Somi, I love what you're doing. Let's collaborate." And I work 15 hours a day. I just literally have enough time to sleep. I can't stretch myself anymore to like discovery. Right. Just so anybody wants anything from us, from me, wanting to work with us, all that stuff. I just really want people to be very clear about, understand, look at the picture, big picture of what we're trying to do, and then come to me with a very clear recommendation or proposal to say, how can we collaborate? Because this is our timeline. I'm not going to push our timeline around, because I just don't have the capacity. It's like every year we're going to do one of these things, and I need to do them in that order. So it may well be that some of these collaborations will happen a little bit down the line. I'm raising investment right now, and we are still raising seed funds. So next year we will start looking at raising our Series A fund. So it's a matter of having enough funds, enough staff to help, and from my time is completely gone. Like literally, there's every minute is counted for.
Is there some way that you could actually spend less time in the business if you had the right skill level helping you, or do you think it's necessary for you?
It's necessary for me, because this is now the business is in its infancy. I have an amazing team of, we have our Sherpanis, each of them are working on their own. The main thing is that I move so fast that it's incredibly hard for everybody to know what's going on in my head at all times. Like literally, I wake up in the morning and I have 10 new, ideas of things that need to be implemented. So I don't think anybody who built a big business, if you look at Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like all of them, they still work like that. They still, to this day, like Elon, I remember seeing an interview where he's like, sometimes he thinks that, or I think it was a Clubhouse thing, where he's like, sometimes he thinks like his brain is going to break, if he is saying that, and he's got all these people helping him. So the truth is that if you are somebody who can see the big picture and the small picture and all of the, you have a vision, it's impossible to delegate. This is not a normal business. It's not like, let's just get some clients and make some money. It's not like that. This is, bringing a vision.
All consuming.
Yes.
And don't you think you might want a relationship, or just something might happen where you...
So that is like, so I was in a relationship and it broke up because of my focus on work. And that was actually before I started Fempeak. So you can imagine how difficult it would be now. I just don't have the space for it at the moment.
And so you just do nothing but work the whole time?
No, well, I have company. I meet people. I have friends. I make time for socialization, but it's very rigid. It's like half a day per week.
Uh-huh. Wow, it's pretty intensive. And how do you manage to remain a top voice on LinkedIn while you're busy focusing, say, on your business and what
so
you're
for the
trying
past, that's been the past 3 years, right? So maybe this year they may not pick it because I've not been as active. But I still post very regularly, but my focus has been more on Fempeak. The way, I don't know, they pick it up, they pick it. They just look at who.
Don't you actually think LinkedIn is going to find this interesting? I'm going to write about this sort of content. How did you go about achieving, top voice, even for 2-3 years?
I don't know. They just pick it. I don't know. I have no. It's not something you can apply for. It's not like that. They just.
I know, but. So you have no strategy at all to achieve it?
No, I just made good content, and I focused on giving value. I created so much content that I could have monetized. I just give so much. Everything I learn, everything I do, I share them. I try to teach stuff to people who were my target audience. So I knew exactly who my target audience was. I connected with the right people, and then it sort of creates a network effect, right? So then people who like your work, they comment, and other people see what they're doing. And the funny thing is that every time you change direction, like now I've changed direction, I don't talk about marketing anymore. Every time you change direction, you lose a lot of engagement, because because people are used to you talking about something. Like all of a sudden now I'm talking about women, and a lot of people in my LinkedIn are like, what's happening with you? I don't care. I do what pleases me.
Because a lot of big brand people, like marketing directors, are not even on LinkedIn very much. So if they were your target audience,
they are. So let me tell you something. I believe it doesn't matter which platform you choose. You need to pick one platform and go all in. It's not that you don't have for example, I don't put much effort into my Instagram. I don't put much effort into my Twitter. They are just there, and we just share whatever we share on those platforms. We just on the other platforms we share on there. My content, at least before Fempeak, it has always been focused on, like, it's been designed for LinkedIn. So I would know what my target audience is on LinkedIn, and I would also know what the LinkedIn algorithm, the way that it works, the way that it, the length, the way the introduction, all that stuff. So we figured out the LinkedIn code, and we've done that for several of our clients as well. Now we have about 10 clients that we do their LinkedIn management. So we manage their LinkedIn, we create their LinkedIn content. Wow. We get leads for them on LinkedIn. So that's one of the things that we do at Smart Cookie Media. So it's one of the things that our business does, and we're very good at it. And most of those people whose profiles we built, a lot of other people looking at, they don't even know that we are creating the content, right? We are creating the content. We're managing their entire system. So there is a way of doing things on every platform, and I believe you need to pick one. Sure. And go all in. And the same people, they are on Facebook, they are on Instagram. You may not find that particular person as active in other platforms, but within that company, there will be people who, like, let's say a big corporation will have several marketing people, right? Some of them may be very active on Twitter. Some of them may be active on Instagram or LinkedIn. But to be able to do all of these platforms really well is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. Like somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk, he's got 17 people dedicated to his social media, 17 people to his social media.
Yeah. So how do you learn new information? Like when you were beginning LinkedIn and wanted to really understand it, do you use books? How do you actually go around?
I think a lot of it is trial and error, because obviously there are quite a lot of videos that teach you stuff. They help, but ultimately so much of it is trial and error, and until you hit upon the right kind of, in my book I talk about this. I said that succeeding on social media, every social media channel is like a casino. Lots of people come in and play. Some people win, some people lose, but the house always wins. And one of the things that I wanted to do differently with Fempeak is exactly to overcome that, is that we are picking content creators rather than letting people just like create a mass of, untargeted content. So we are picking content creators that are really good and don't have a massive audience, or maybe even they have, but they want to increase. And we say, look, you come and put on events on our platform, and it doesn't take that much of your time, maybe 4 times a year, but we will promote it. And this is about quality over quantity. So it's not about getting you massive following. It's about the kind of people that come there. There are definitely people who are interested in what you've got to offer and say. So it's a different model, different business model. But the truth is that to ask how do you become a LinkedIn top voice, or how do you become a YouTube influencer, to ask that question is the same as asking somebody who is a, let's say, poker expert and wins a lot of poker games, somebody who's like very at gambling, asking them, because it's a gamble. It is a gamble. Like when I spend that money on my documentary, I didn't know it would succeed. Yeah. I just had it.
But it is also, it's not just, it's about having the right topics, because there are certain topics that, say, cybersecurity was quite big a few years ago. So if you were discussing that, you were more likely to be a top voice than if you're discussing a topic that isn't generally interesting to people. So
I don't know if I agree with that. I think that as long as you have a good size audience, so it's very easy. You go to Sales Navigator, and you can look at people by industry, and look at, like, you can make a guess of, for example, sports, let's say fitness, is really oversaturated in Instagram. So if somebody wants to be a fitness guru on LinkedIn, it would do really well if they are consistent with it. So let's somebody could be like, I've seen somebody on LinkedIn who's a painter, and she really stands out, and she's got a huge following, but all she does these beautiful portraits, and she shares them on LinkedIn and talks about them. It's just like, because if she does the same thing on Instagram, it would be much harder because there's too many of them. So I think it's just like understanding who your audience is, what the size of the audience is, and like right now, I'm not putting as much effort into, to be honest, even my LinkedIn. I'm this year, because I'm building Fempeak, and it's just so all consuming, right?
Yeah, of course. So do you read books? And if so, what recommendations would you have for people who are trying to improve their...
Yeah, I think I finish 1 book per week, but I listen. So I get through quite a lot of books.
Are there any you'd recommend? I often
Of course, yeah. So it depends on what people are looking for. Right now, I'm finishing Dame Stephanie Shirley's autobiography and listening to it. It's called Let It Go. I'm listening to quite a lot of books about blockchain, and because I'm like right now my next big thing is digital assets. That's where I'm getting into really. So every now and then, every couple of years, I get really obsessed with something, and then I put a lot of effort into it. I really learn everything about it. So it was marketing.
Quite similar. I mean, basically, I got really into branding, and now I'm really interested in jobs to be done. Competing with luck by Clayton Christensen. As an approach to understanding what customers want.
Yeah, I remember I read that book a couple of years ago. It's such a good book. I like Clayton Christensen.
Good way to learn, to really home in on the topic.
Yeah, so right now I'm very big on everything to do with digital assets. That's the space. But if I were to say,
what do you mean by digital assets?
Like NFT, cryptocurrency, all sorts of things that are because of the way that the governments are printing money, so money is going to be pretty not valuable, not very valuable over the coming years. We're going to see massive inflations. So I think people are going to find, and also increasingly we're living in a digital environment. And there's going to be massive job losses in the normal, job market. So I think there will be a massive exodus of people from, especially younger generations, digital and native generation. Like the younger millennials and Gen Z. I think they're going to do most of their work, which like economic activity in the digital space, and they could be like basically playing games and earning money from NFTs. That's like, it's just a fascinating whole new area.
And what have you learned during your period in entrepreneurship that you would, one single issue that you would pass on to a best friend, somebody who's about to start in business? What would you advise them?
Yeah, probably that's an interesting one. I would probably say, don't listen to anyone's advice. I think that mentorship is overrated. I think that in the West, it's a big thing. And I'm saying this as somebody who's creating a whole, space of mentorship on Fempeak. So there is definitely value to mentorship, but people need to experience things for themselves. And they need to allow themselves to fail, and they need to allow themselves and just be more courageous in taking. It's always good to listen to people, just to listen, to hear different ideas and see what other people have done that may be not right. But like, I've had many people who would look at what an idea that I have, and they would say, oh, this is not doable, and I've done it. So ultimately, yourself better, or you need to know yourself better.
Well, you've certainly blazed a trail on your own, haven't you?
Yes.
Coming over here. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much, Somi. It's been very nice talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye. That's it for this week. Do subscribe to the brandtuned newsletter to get weekly updates. I'd also love to get your feedback. Just send me an email to info@brandtuned.com. Finally, if you liked the episode, please do share it with your friends and colleagues and review it on iTunes or whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. If you leave us a 5-star review, it means more people will listen and we can spread the word much more quickly about the podcast. Thank you, and bye for now.